Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of In the Kitchen with Tom House and West End Lombard. Today's topic will be how to build a velo day. Everybody wants to throw a little harder. Even me at 40 years old wants to throw from 69 and hit that 70 now. So today's topic is how to build a velo day. Once again, if you're in the chat, just go ahead and drop any questions you want in the chat. Let me open it up. It's not open yet. Now it's open. You can go ahead and drop questions in there, and let's get started. Let me take this call live. And Weston, hello, Tom. How's
Hello.
everything down in San Diego?
Everything's going good. We got sunshine and 70 degrees, typical San Diego.
That's good. It's been a few weeks since we've been getting no rain, I guess, or
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain, but it's not bugging us now.
Good. Well, we got sunshine and 55 up in Minnesota, so that's good for us too.
Great for you. That's t-shirt weather for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
But you're coming down here next week, so you get to hang out with us.
yeah, exactly. Super excited for that. Hey, Steve, are we good to go and get started?
Yeah, we're good. Let's see. I'm just doing the final step here. Take this call live. Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Tom, super excited to talk shop with you about how to build a velo day. I think the first question is kind of just maybe talk through a little bit about the difference between, someone that's just getting off the mound for a bullpen and someone that is, trying to build velocity.
Well, let's go really big picture first. Anything that you move that's heavier than your 5-ounce baseball is for strength. Anything you move that's lighter than a 5-ounce baseball is for speed and nervous system. So heavy muscle, speed, light. And depending on where you are in the season, the easiest way to think about it is hold the heavy and throw the light. And then you go basically super heavy or super light. So we call it the vocabulary we're adding to it right now. It's hyper training or hypermyelinating, either the nervous system for strength and muscle or the nervous system for speed and durability. So that combination. If you're working for just a 1-day test to see how hard you can throw on a given day, you kind of have to lead into it. You just can't do it out of nowhere. Right. And we've all talked about this in the last couple of years. I think we were the first entity we tried to fix GERD, which is gonadal humeral internal rotation deficit. We started throwing and holding weighted balls 2008 and 9 is when the research started. And trying to remediate GERD, we realized that you could also improve velocities. So from that GERD study, we basically learned that from a 2-pound down to a 2-ounce, you do 2 throws and 3 holds. From knees, step and throw, rockers, or run and gun, whatever we're calling that, go fast now. And you can't graduate from knees to standing up and throwing, standing up and throwing to run and gun or crow hop or whatever you want to call it, until you can actually go through maximum intensity and actually hold on to the heavy and or the light, depending on your progression. That makes sense? So you just can't step right in and improve your velo. It's something you have to adapt your arm to fit. So big picture, heavier than 5-ounce is for strength, lighter than 5-ounce is for speed, 3 holds, 2 throws through the weighted ball progression, 2 pounds down to 2 ounces. And that sets up whatever questions you have coming next.
Tom, Weston, I got a question real quick. I see a lot of programs that they just do the throws. Can you improve velo by just doing throws? And what do you risk? With no holds?
Okay, that's really a good question. Anytime you throw and the ball or the implement leaves your hand, it's energy out. You are literally going through all this manipulation to throw something that comes out of your hand. That takes foot-pounds of energy out of your total body, but specifically your arm. Anytime you hang on to that implement, it puts energy back in. So along with the adaptation to the 2 pound, 1 pound, 6, 5, 4, 2 ounce, you have to put back in your training, in your patterning. Let me take a sidebar there. Whenever you hear Mustard talking about training, it's for muscle. Anytime you hear about patterning, it's for the nervous system. And we're adding some new things in, and I'll share them with you next week with you, Weston. Myelination is how we actually get around roadblocks that are in your nervous system. We've always known that you're only as strong as your weakest link and you're only as efficient as your worst movement. Well, now we realize as energy goes through your body and you're trying to exert maximum energy onto the baseball for velocity, if you have a neurological impediment anywhere in your body, a stiff neck, something that's bothering your low back, you have an Achilles issue, that will actually not only energy-wise with muscle, that will affect your nervous system too. So we get a little smarter every year. It's measurable, it's doable, and it's safe if you follow our protocol.
Right. I love that. I think you kind of set a good standard of, right, before we even talk about doing a velocity day, there's certain things that we need to be able to do from a health standpoint. And like you said, that's being able to hold at max intent, every single weighted ball through kind of the progression of the knees to the rocker to the
we call it
step
run
behind,
gun or step behind? Yeah.
yeah, running gun, step behind, all of those. Yeah. And so let's assume that they've passed that, right? They're going throughout their week of throwing, and today is their day that they're going to throw it as hard as they can, try to
So this is the day you're going to benchmark how hard your body can throw a baseball. Okay, yep. You don't want to know how we get into that day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, is the preparation the same that day versus a day that you're just taking your arm for a walk, or is it the same?
Well, when you're going to test for real velocity, maxing out to see where you are with point in time, you're going to go through the same basic block training to warm up. Basically, core temperature elevation, arm carrying recovery, body work, and then PNF work. And you go through your normal throwing protocols and your drills. And you'll save, you'll play catch on flat ground, and you'll get on the mound and you'll actually throw a few with a 5 ounce to get used to the slope. And then we're assuming that you're totally recovered from what you had done earlier in the week, that you're not hurting, stiff, or sore anywhere, and that literally you're able to consciously and subconsciously go Mach 3 with your hair on fire and see what happens. And that's where you grab your 2 ounce. And the new protocol that we're following, hypermyelinization, you're going to throw 2 sets of 15 with a 2 ounce as hard as you can, as long as your velo doesn't drop 3 pitches in a row. Now let me explain that again. You're going to go 2 sets of 15 with a 2 ounce, throwing it as hard as you think and can, not really worrying about mechanics, not worrying about anything except going as fast as you can, as far as you can, and throwing it as hard as you can. So you get your first couple and you'll see it will usually be, if your average fastball is right around 90, when you're doing the 2 ounce at Mach 3, you're going to start seeing 97, 98. On occasion, it'll pop up to 100, but you're going to see what your gene pool and your current status with nerve and muscle, how they're talking to each other, and how you're getting all that energy into the 2 ounce ball. And if you can actually make it through the first set of 15, you're going to sit down just like you do in a game in between innings. give yourself a 4 or 5 minute breather, and go right back out to your second inning, a second round of 15. And when you can throw, in effect, 30 pitches and keep your velos right around that 98 to 99, or if you do happen to break 100 with a 2-ounce, can you keep that velocity and adapt to that 100-mile-an-hour with 2-ounce and your current state of strength, neurological, and adaptation to the stresses? And we're getting huge feedback from that. So, you have any questions about that? And then we have one more thing we're going to add. You have any questions about that, Steve? Because you're
Yeah,
going to come down next week. We're going to try to get you to break 70. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna break 70 next week with the 2-ounce.
Yeah.
Just asking the question, I'm thinking about it, like, because we always get the question from coaches, like, how many times do we just do this on Velo Day? How many Velo days do we have? Is it once a week, a couple times a week?
Well, when you're doing a Velo Day, which you should do, except in the off season when you're actually taking a break from the mound.
Yeah.
You should literally ask your arm to go as fast as it can, because as seasons progress and as careers progress, you're going to hit thresholds that your body will just not be able to break through unless you challenge your arm to go as fast as you can with all the supporting mechanisms from the rest of your body. So in season, preseason, and I would say when you're going from the end of preseason into spring training, you should also do it during spring training. The only time you won't ask your arm to hypermyelinate is when you're in active rest from the mound. And that's when your arm you're going to throw, but you're not going to max out with anything. You're throwing whatever implement you're throwing just so that your arm continues to know how to throw.
Yeah. So it's okay to max out maybe as long as your arm can do it, right? As long as.
Yeah. And remember, to be able to, if you want to do a Velo Day today, you have to look me in the face and tell me that you're totally recovered from the weight room. If you lifted heavy yesterday, you probably are not going to get the most out of your arm on a Velo Day the next day. So you have to be totally recovered. You have to be not in muscle failure from the weight room. And then you can challenge yourself with a Velo Day.
Perfect. All right, we got a couple questions in the chat before we proceed. Here's from Rich. Does weighted ball work precede the 2-ounce work or just the blocks?
Okay, that question has two answers. If you're working on functional strength, that you'll start with a heavy and finish with a light. If you're working on pure speed, you'll get loose and work with the light first, because you don't want to try to have your nervous system work faster when you've been through the heavier ball and on the weighted side of the 5 ounces. Did that make sense what I just said? So depending on what kind of day that you're looking at, if this is a day to joint integrity work, then you're going to start heavy and finish light. If this is a day to go fast, then you're going to start with the light and finish with the heavy.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, when we talk about throwing the 2-ounce, or even if they're doing it with 5-ounce, we talk about the, mock through with your hair on fire, running guns, or we're doing it off the mound. Is there, a better fit for different types of players of, this guy should be doing running guns or this guy should be doing it off the mound? Like, is there a way to know who should be off the mound and who should be doing shuffle?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it all starts with, and it starts with our stat test, where we screen, test, assess, to determine how we're going to train and pattern this particular individual for not only his chronological age, but his biological age. So if we've done all those manipulations, and we've talked about that in previous in the kitchen get-togethers, but if you follow those protocols, then you will know where this particular youngster is with his mechanics and his strength, and also how he bounces back in recovery. And that's literally how you can go about building strength or velo in a body so it adapts to the accommodation of what you have to do when you're competing. Let me repeat that. You adapt to accommodate to compete. And then you prepare to compete, to recover and repeat. Put those together, and the program almost dictates itself what the needs are. Starting pitcher, reliever, same idea. It's just the intensity with which you get the throwing volumes done during the course of the season.
That makes a ton of sense. That was going to be kind of one of the next questions was, how many, I know you said 2 sets of 15, right? From a starter to a reliever, let's say we took those 2 roles out and we were just talking about increasing their peak output. Are you a fan of kind of doing more higher volume and taking a longer break in between sessions, like maybe taking, 5, 6 days, 7 days in between those sessions, or doing kind of lower volume, get that stimulus of, overspeed at lower volume though, so that you can recover quicker?
It depends on what your role is and what you're preparing for in season. I think we've said this a number of times. If a starting pitcher, your best starting pitcher on a staff and your best closer on a staff will have the same amount of pitches at the end of the season, their volume, their throwing workloads will be just about the same. But your starting pitcher will do like you just mentioned. Well, he'll have a high volume, intense day on the mound, and he needs to train for that. Your closer will have the same volume of pitches in a given week, but instead of doing it one outing at 95 to 110, he'll do it at 3 to 4 outings at 25 to 30 pitches per inning. And that goes to another formula. I know you guys get sick of me and my formulas, but volume of work equals load, frequency, intensity, and duration. And you're going to train to specific requirements of what your role is on the pitching staff. If you don't know, like if you're going into a season, Weston, and you don't know whether you're going to be a bullpen guy or a starter, it's always better to train to be in the bullpen and then adjust. You can adjust quicker to the volumes of being a starter and to get used to being a starter and all the things that you can take time doing to get ready to get in the game, to where the pitching coach says, you've got the next left-hander and you have to get ready in like 7 pitches.
Oh yeah.
So again, the question you asked is an awesome question, but it's all specific to what your needs are in preparation for your role on a pitching staff. Can I throw something in what's actually sticking in my head? With youth players, 12 and under, 13 and under, before testosterone showed up, they could work with heavier implements, but it really doesn't do them any good. I would never go 2 pound, 1 pound with a 12-year-old or younger. Probably 6 ounces would be the most, the heaviest implement I'd have them throw. And then when testosterone starts showing up, then they can start working on muscle. So you could have a 12-year-old throw the 2 pound ball, but the risk reward isn't worth it. Have him work on building durability with a 6 and lighter, and work on the speed, and he'll carry that over. And when you add muscle in, you won't have that 82 or 83 mile an hour threshold that you can't get through.
Well, that makes sense too, especially with youth, because a 5-ounce ball to a 10-year-old is going to be a lot different than a 5-ounce ball to me. And so that stimulus is already different, where it's almost like just have them throw a wiffle ball and a baseball, and that can be kind of how they get that overspeed without putting too much stress on their arm.
Exactly. And what you just said, I don't know if people are aware, but baseball is the only sport where a 12-year-old throws the same weighted implement that a big leaguer does. So there's all kinds of lobbying going on behind the scenes for the safety and the health of a young arm. Maybe it might be smarter to have them throw a 4-ounce.
No, it makes a ton of sense. When someone's in the middle of a session, how long in between pitches should they wait, right? Like, do you want them to take their, like, really take their time and catch their breath, and there's no pitch clock in a velocity session, or should they be going on a cadence of every 15, 20 seconds? Is there a reason to do a specific time?
Yes. You train specific to what you need to do in the game. So the pitch clock is what, 20 seconds now?
20.
Yeah. So you will do exactly that. If you're on a velocity day and you're working on the 2 ounce, as hard as you can throw it, you'll do it every 20 seconds, and you're training your body to do the activity and then bounce back and recover for the next activity. So it got away from me. Remember the good old days when we did the ball, glove, and towel together and went all the way down to where it was just our throwing hand, taken through the throwing motion as fast as we could, and then we look to see if our throwing hand was a darker color than our non-throwing hand, and that was our indicator that we were maxing out. We're adding that back in. And the surprising thing is your stud hard throwers in pro ball, they can't make their hand go as fast as when they have a 2 ounce in their hand. So that is a little bit of a tough one for us to figure out. But hand only, and making your hand go through the throwing motion to where you can hear you hear your hand. That actually helps your fastball. So, and it also, you're not throwing anything, you're just accelerating your arm with the weight of your arm. So it doesn't take as much out because nothing's leaving your hand. So that combination, we're having some fun numbers with that.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually seen videos of, like, Edwin Diaz has been doing it with his hand for a while. I think, like, that's how he does his dry reps, is he like intentfully, cups his hand and just tries to make that big whoosh.
And it actually doesn't work for everybody, but it's something that everybody should try. And it's actually, once they've adapted to it, even the big boys, they're that hand speed with nothing leaving their hand carries over to when they do throw something.
Oh, that's cool.
We got a couple questions from the chat. We get to them, Weston, and then we'll keep on going.
Sure.
Question from Rich: can low volume speed work be added to a pregame routine as part of the warm up?
Probably not. If your pitcher has a chance to be in the game, what he's doing is preparing for those maximum effort in between the lines, competitive throws. And to ask your body to max out in the pregame warm-up probably wouldn't be, I wouldn't suggest it, because you want to save all your bullets for game time.
It's okay to, I know we've seen it before, do a couple running guns before you get going on.
Oh yeah, a couple, but not in the 15 and 15.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can always, in your warm-up progressions, and we've talked about long toss. Long toss is as far as you can throw perfectly, whatever distance that is. You can actually throw a 4 ounce, and that will actually help when you put the 5 ounce in your hand and you go in the game. In fact, when people have hit those thresholds where they can't seem to get through them, where all their velocity spreads are bunching with the weighted balls, it actually helps not to throw a 5 ounce baseball unless you're going in a game. Do all your training with a 4 ounce. That's playing catch, going through all your drills. And in effect, you're just tricking your brain into having your arm go faster. And there's translation. You put the 5 ounce and you go in the game.
Can you play long toss with the 2 ounce?
You can, but you can't throw a 2 ounce as far as you can throw a 4 ounce or a 5 ounce. Can you tell me why?
It's not much weight. 2 ounces.
Because the 2 ounce and air.
Yeah, mirror.
Yeah, just visualize yourself trying to throw in water.
Yeah.
You can create as much arm speed, but the medium called water will slow your arm down. So all those things we experiment with. You just have to make sure that you've warmed up to loosen up to do your activity. You can't do it cold.
Yeah. We have another question here from the chat. How do you know if we are functionally strong enough to go 100% with a 2 ounce off a mound?
Well, remember, you can't get to the mound until you've gone through the 3 holds, 2
Yeah.
throws, from the knees, the rocker, and the run and gun. And if you're strong enough to go maximum effort from the run and gun and hang on to a 2 pound, 1 pound, 6, 5, 4, and 2 ounce, then you can take it, swing, and throw from the mound.
So as long as you're able to hold on to all the balls.
And that's how the program that Mustard goes after, that's how we're safe. You can't graduate intensity until, if you can't hold on to the ball on your knees, where you have body weight and the amount of foot-pounds of energy, to step and throw or rock or leaper, which is 2 times body weight. And then 4 times body weight is when you run and gun on a flat ground. When you run and gun on the mound, it's 6 times body weight. And if you've gone through your progressions, you'll be able to hang on to and throw with no physical issues whatsoever.
Yeah. And we got one more. Let's get through this one. How many pitches do you recommend, like running guns, when you're warming up, or your first warm-ups, 2 or 3 running guns, or is there a number?
Yeah, that's usually up to the individual, but I like to have kids train in sets of 15. And that's the reason is that that's the average pitches per inning for a big league pitcher. So if you train, say you're a reliever, Weston, and you're going to be one time through the lineup at most. So 1 time through the lineup, pardon me, it's usually 3. Let me say this again. 1 time through the lineup is the equivalent of 3 innings. So first 3 hitters, 45 pitches. And that is what they train a starter to do. If you're going to be a closer, you're going to come in and you're going to, for a third of an inning or 1 inning max, you're Mach 3 for between 10 and 15 throws, and you train that way. So you train specifically to what your in-game competitive requirements are. That's what you have to accommodate.
Yeah. So I think he meant like right before you start your pitches off the mound, how many running guns to get going?
Well, we use running guns as part of the timing thing.
Yeah.
And again, we're kind of moving off the velo stuff, but
Yeah.
you have to be able to run and gun in the same time frame as a regular stretch. So we use, remember our variables, timing and kinematic sequence lead to our report card from Mustard. So you want, if you're a run and gun on a regular stretch, or from the first movement going forward, you've got to get into foot strike in 1 second or less. And I always like to refer to Nolan Ryan, what he did when he came into the mound in between innings. He would run and gun for 2 or 3 to get used to the slope and make sure his timing was in place. And he'd throw a couple from the stretch and then get to the hitter.
Then he threw a no-hitter. Easy.
He did it more often than anybody else.
Yeah. And 2 hitters, right? And 3 hitters. Probably has a record for all of them, I think.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We're all done. Okay. Weston, go ahead.
So so Tom, so let's say they do their session, they get their sets of 15 in. I think something that kind of divides pitching Twitter from time to time is, after you have a high intent throwing day, should you do more arm care or less arm care? What should the focus be after they throw? And are there anything, like, should they be doing stuff specifically for their arm, or is it more so, the hydration buckets and the sleep and eating? What would be your priority list of things to do that day?
Awesome. It's all the above. If you have gone to maximum intensity with the 2 ounce for the whole 2 15-pitch innings, then you have to treat yourself like you're in muscle failure. And when you're in muscle failure, it's nutrition, sleep for recovery, it's aerobic and anaerobic activity, it's joint integrity work with the light dumbbells, the elastic cores. Probably, unless you're 17, 18 or older, you don't want to go in the weight room and lift heavy after you've gone into a deficit with the 2 ounce, unless your body is in tune with lifting heavier weights and you're making sure that your squats are not going to cause you issues because of technique. You have to be careful about your bench. And one of the deadlift has turned out to be, if you don't do it perfectly, it can be kind of dangerous. So you can do what normal activity is after a velo day, but treat it like you're in muscle failure from a game and do what you need to do for the quickest recovery possible. And our goal across the board is to be able to recover in 2 days, 48 hours.
Got it. And you talk a little bit about like joint integrity. Can you talk a little bit about those protocols and how to know how much to do based on what they throw? We don't need to go super in the weeds of like foot pounds and all of that type of stuff, but maybe just kind of at a high level, how do you know how much to do based on how much you threw and how hard you're throwing, stuff like
That's a great question. If you're doing heavy weight, you have to really be careful about volume. If you're working on joint integrity, you're never going to put yourself in muscle failure because you're not working on building strength. You're looking at building endurance. So joint integrity work is our light dumbbells, our elastic cord, our there's all kinds of, I won't go too deep into the weeds. And all you have to do is make sure that what you took out of your arm, you put back in. And remember, with joint integrity work, you are not pushing muscles into failure. You're just building durability, or you're accommodating the thresholds that they have to reach to be healthy given their role on the pitching staff. So if you follow mustard protocols, you can do the dumbbell, elastic cord, you can do that stuff every day because you never put yourself in muscle failure. It's just joint integrity work, trying to make sure that your joints, your connective tissue, and your muscle are all in balance. Your first line of defense is muscle. Your second line of defense is connective tissue. And your third line of defense is bone. And when you're doing joint integrity work, you're asking all those things to work together at a volume that is specific to what you do when you actually take energy out of your arm and throw it in the game. And if you do that, you should never really have a bad arm from throwing.
Oh, that's awesome. And outside of the joint integrity, then from other protocols, would you say there's like kind of a checklist of things that you should do to take care of your body the day after you throw? From, is there an amount of water you should drink? Is there like a priority of, protein versus carbs of the meals and when you eat it, and how much sleep should I get that night? And is there some like kind of guidelines you have for that?
And for a fact that you have to, every time an athlete's going to be like, next Monday, you're going to get mechanics. Tuesday, you're going to get functional strength. Wednesday, you're going to get nutrition and sleep for recovery. And Thursday, you're going to get mental emotional management for stress and anxiety. So nutrition and sleep are blood chemistry and it's for recovery. And all the big money in sports research right now is focused on recovery. We do a pretty good job out there with mechanics and functional strength. And being able to recover in 2 days or less is turning out to be the mantra for all these guys. So real quick, it's food combined, food rotate, food supplement. You're going to make sure you hydrate early and hydrate often. And this is the same whether you're a starter or a reliever, whether you didn't do anything last night or whether you're in muscle failure from last night. You still have to hydrate early and you have to hydrate often. And it's 1/2 to 2/3 of your body weight in fluid ounces, preferably with alkaline water, which is a whole other, the most important time to put water in your system is when you wake up in the morning, because athletes will, if they sweat at night, they can wake up in the morning in more muscle failure than they went to bed with. And then you go 40, 30, 30 with nutritional intake, 40% complex carbs, 30% protein, 30% smart fat. And with that balanced meal, your body is going to get everything it needs in the form of nutrients to help your body recover quicker. After you've looked at 40, 30, 30, the most calories that you put in your body are before the most calories you're going to burn. But the most important meal in a given day is breakfast. When you get up in the morning, you don't necessarily have to eat a big breakfast. You have to eat a balanced breakfast, and that sets your metabolism for the whole rest of the day. And then there's all kinds of thoughts on supplements and enhancements. It's more than we need to talk about right now. But 3 meals, 2 snacks. If you're a typical teenager, 3 meals, 2 snacks. Most important meal is breakfast. Put the most calories in your body before you're going to burn the most calories. So if you're an afternoon guy in high school, eat more calories for lunch. And if you're a nighttime guy, eat calories in your afternoon dinner meal before you go to the ballpark. And then sleep is equally important. And I'll bring up Tom Brady. One of the things he did to prolong his career, he would actually leave family get-togethers, parties at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. He'd go to bed to make sure he got what he felt was the most amount of sleep that he needed. So think about it this way. Your first 4 hours of sleep when you go to bed at night is for physical recovery, no matter what time you go to bed. First 4 hours is for physical recovery. But your body does best when you sleep in REM cycles of 90 minutes. The first REM cycle is 4.5 hours. You go 4.5, 6, 7.5, or 9. If you can sleep in those REM cycles and not wake up in the middle of them, then your neuroplasticity, which is everything you learned yesterday, physically and intellectually, your neuroplasticity puts it up there on the shelf so you can pull it out and use it again tomorrow. If you wake up or don't get the right amount of sleep, you don't learn anything physically or intellectually from yesterday, and you have to start over again today. So one more thing about sleep: try to sleep cool. The ideal temperature for an athlete to sleep in is right at 68 degrees. Basically the span goes anything between 64 and 70 degrees. It's optimal, but for most athletes, 68 is like the perfect temperature.
Awesome. And then moving on to like the next day, right? Like we just threw, we ate, we drank, we slept, we wake up the next day, we're probably, kind of sore. What do kind of those next few days look like from a throwing standpoint? That's something that I've always kind of had trouble balancing is, what's too much the next day? Do you even throw the next day? Is there a gradual buildup? Do you listen to your arm? How do you kind of navigate the throwing after that?
It's personally adaptive. But I do know this: you have to throw. If you're going to be a baseball player or a quarterback, if you're throwing something for a living, you throw every day. The level of intensity that you throw with is unique to you. So I like to say long toss is as far as you can throw perfectly. If you threw 110 pitches last night, Weston, and you're a little stiff and sore today, and you've gone through all your other stuff, you get up, you have your breakfast, you do all the stuff that you're supposed to do, and you get to the ballpark, you're going to go through your blocks. You do everything you would do when you feel 100%, but you're going to do it at the level of intensity that you're comfortable with. It's called to tolerance. You have to throw, you have to go through all the things that you do to make yourself the best pitcher you can be in competition. You just do it with less intensity. And if all works well by day 2 after a started a game on Sunday, by Tuesday, you should be pretty much out of stiffness and soreness. And then that's when you start pushing the intensity for your next outing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. I think
everybody, excuse me for interrupting, everybody is a little different. You can't have one program for everybody, but you have a program that everybody can pick from to make it work for them.
Yeah, I think that's super important just for really anything in baseball, right? Is that there isn't one cookie cutter thing for everyone. And so being able to make it, personally adaptive, like you say, and, make or break people's careers. When you say throwing to tolerance, right? I think some people have a better feel for what tolerance is, right? How do you kind of navigate what to tolerance is for a thrower? Because I know some people where they'll pitch and then the next day they're like, oh, I'm really sore, and they'll say I'm really sore today, and then they go and they chuck baseballs 80-90% of what they were throwing the day before, and now they're sore 2 days 3 days out because they never recover. what's kind of the signal that you should be like feeling for when you're throwing of like, okay, like I kind of found the sweet spot of where I should be that day?
Yeah, and that is difficult. It takes experience to figure out how your body is actually responding to the workloads you put in. But as a coach or a parent, if your athletes say that they're hurting somewhere, if they're stiff or sore, now stiffness and soreness feel the same when you get to the ballpark. But stiffness goes away in your block training, getting ready for whatever your activity is in a given day. So give yourself at least a chance. If your elbow's barking or your shoulder's bugging you on the backside, go through your 4 blocks, your warm up to loosen up to do your activity, and see how you feel. Most of the time, if you're committed to mustard and what we coach, you'll feel stiffness, but soreness will not cause you an issue. So assuming the stiffness goes away, you will throw to your level of tolerance, whatever volumes you think you need to put in mechanically or functionally strength-wise to prepare you for your next outing. And I'd like to say we have it figured out for everybody, but everybody has their own feel, and you have to be smart. And you also have to be careful not to do. I'm going to take a step back. Some people feel like unless they've given it 1,000%, that they're falling behind. Sometimes less is more. Steve, what I just said. Sometimes less is more. And some of my older athletes, I actually have active rest in. Like toward the end of Drew Brees' career, he would not throw anything on Wednesday, period. So, but we brought up kids to think if they outwork everybody, that almost guarantees that they'll be better than everybody. But there's a threshold of too much. And you have to kind of figure out, we're getting better at testing for that. And I'm hoping sometime in the next 6 months, we'll be able to do it for hitting, golf, pitching, anything that mustard's involved with. But once you figure out what it takes for you to recover and how you feel in that recovery process, the volumes are going to be a little bit different for everybody. But it's up to you to determine the level of intensity you work those volumes with.
All right, we still
No, that
have
makes
perfect. We have a couple follow-ups, Tom. Just to summarize, how many sets of 15 running guns?
Okay, are we talking about a pure 2-ounce day of velocity?
Yeah. So let's go 2-ounce day.
2 sets of 15 with a little 4 or 5 minute break in between the first and second set.
So that's all you need, two
The
sets.
rule is when they're doing that, if the velos drop on 3 successive pitches, they're done for the day. If they can sustain the 2-ounce at that same Mach 3 velo for 15, a rest on 15, then they have adapted their arm to go that fast. And we've actually done it this off season, and we've had kids throwing as much as 118 miles an hour and sustaining that 2-ounce for 2 sets of 15. And that means they've broken through all those thresholds that hold them at 93 and 95. It's a whole new horizon.
So after those 2 sets, you're done for the day. You don't throw any other balls?
Yeah, you don't need to throw any more off the mound. That's your throwing for the day.
That's just 30 pitches.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to just summarize, throw Sunday, low intensity Monday, higher intensity Tuesday, and get ready to pitch on Wednesday.
I just pulled Sunday, Monday, Tuesday out.
Okay.
You want to recover in 2 days. If you throw on Wednesday and you got in muscle failure with pitch totals, then you should be available in the bullpen 2 days later. If you're a starting pitcher and you went super into a deficit, total muscle failure with 110 pitches, you still have to recover in 2 days so you can get on the mound and do your in-between appearance work and make it work for you. So the magic recovery time is 2 days.
So how do you know when you're recover, I guess? So is it a feel like?
Well, there's a bunch of ways to do it.
Yeah.
You can do litmus tests to see what your acid alkaline balance is. You can go by feel. A lot of kids spend a whole summer just trying to feel less bad than you did yesterday. If you're recovered, you know when your arm is working. And when I say you got to listen to your body, the East Germans have a great phrase. I wish I could give it to you in German, but it's basically your body's not dumb if you let it be smart. And with the elite athletes I've worked with, they all have a variation on the theme. I've had pitchers say, leave me alone till I line it up. I don't say a word until I know what my body's feeling. And a lot of pitchers on days that they don't feel real good, they won't throw very much. On days that they feel great, then they'll throw extra. It's just the opposite of what I was taught when I came through the system.
Yeah.
They said push through fatigue and it'll make you better as you compete during the summer. It's just the opposite. On days you feel great, go ahead and throw a few extra pitches, work on something extra. On days that you don't feel real good, you're loggy, or it's just that you feel thick, go ahead and go through all your drills, but don't do as many of them. In other words, you work to the level of tolerance you feel. And if you allow your body to prepare, compete, and recover before you repeat, that cycle is, you have to talk, if you're a 12-year-old, listen to your parents or your coach. If you're in the big leagues, sit down and work it out with your conditioning coach, your pitching coach, and what your own body feels like. There's one set of rules, but there's a million interpretations.
Yeah. Can you also talk about, you talked about it before, about soreness, about feeling sore on the front side versus the back side?
Okay, I'm
After a
glad you
session.
yeah, I was gonna say that away from me. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Little rules of thumb, if you get stiff and sore on the front side of your arm, front side shoulder, or front side elbow, it's usually a mechanical problem. All right, your mechanics aren't as efficient as they should be. And more than likely, it's a rotate too soon. You lose your torque in the front side zone. If you're stiff and sore on the back side of your shoulder or the back side of your elbow, that is normally a strength issue. So you can kind of listen to your body on where it gets stiff and sore and train accordingly.
Yeah. So if I'm getting stiff and sore on the front side, it's like, hey, let me go figure something out because my mechanics are probably bad.
Yeah, and if you do the muscle report card,
Yeah.
it will tell you, are you a premature rotator? Do you hang on to your torque? Is your energy angle good? If your timing is off and your kinematic sequencing is off, you're going to have issues with the front side of your shoulder and your elbow.
Perfect. Weston, want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess going kind of with the theme of like arm soreness, let's say you're going through these sessions and you're building velo and arms feeling good, and then eventually you just kind of have more of a dead arm, or maybe not necessarily a dead arm, but your numbers are down from the session before. You're just not really feeling good. How is there a time, Tom, that you believe in like a deload, or do you think that it's just like, you know what, I was just throwing a little slower that day and we'll recover again and we'll try again the next time? And are you a fan of deloading?
Yes, you use that great deload. Is basically what you're going to do is back up to when you hit those walls where you just feel thick or think your numbers aren't what they should be. Cut back across the board with everything to 70%. If your normal day you do X amount of repetitions, cut back to 70% of that. And here's the logic behind that. We know that once you get in 100% shape, whatever that is, at 16 years old, 26, 36, whatever it might be, whatever volumes of work you did to get in that 100% shape, you can maintain that the rest of your life at 70% of the volume it took you to get in shape. So you always have that 30% to fiddle with. To explain what you just said, on that day where your numbers are down, you're not hurting, but you just don't feel crisp and you wonder why. Cut back 70%. I will also tell a pitcher, don't throw the 5 months in between game appearances. Just play catch with the 4 months. And if you normally throw 30 pitches in a long toss, throw 21, cut back to 70%.
Makes a ton of sense. I have one more question written down, and then we can see if any other ones sneak in. But But as people go through their sessions, obviously people want to be increasing their velocity over time. What do you see as kind of the most common factor that leads to these people increasing their velocity? Is it just the fact that they're doing it often and they're getting better at throwing high intent and it happens naturally? Or is it usually that there's a mechanical change that clicks for them? Or is it just a nervous system thing that, accumulates over time and eventually kind of just hits that boiling point of like, okay, like I'm comfortable moving faster? What are kind of the common things that you see happen that kind of lead to the increase?
What you just described is called myelinization. What you use to be the best athlete you can be, your nervous system will wrap your nerves and your brain work together, and your brain sends a message to that nerve, and it will wrap in virtually the same materials that your brain is made up with, and it will let the other nervous part of the nervous system that isn't being used, it will let it lie fallow, and it will focus on that one nerve pathway that gives quote unquote velo at this point in the body. So your career as an athlete starts when you first start throwing the baseball in your first window of trainability, which is nerves. Your second window of trainability is muscle, and it's skill acquisition and skill retention. And basically, it's all the same stuff from the beginning of your career to when your career is over. It's just levels of intensity and volumes of work, where volume equals load, frequency, intensity, and duration. And you mix and match all those equations with where you are and your personally adaptive needs to continue to throw harder until you max out. And we are getting smarter. I'm glad you jogged my mind with this. The traditional strength coach is trying to make you stronger every time you go in the weight room. But we're figuring out, basically by measuring, that there is a threshold where there's diminishing returns by doing too much. So what we're filling with right now in the research is, what does it take out of your legs to sustain your 100-mile-an-hour fast? And then what leg, when you broad jump, you use two legs. When you squat, you use two legs. But when you pitch, you use one leg at a time. And the strength requirements for the two legs are different. So sitting down with really smart strength coaches, they're going, okay, maybe we can be a little bit smarter about asking the body to max out with two legs, but in effect, we have to learn how to max out with one leg at a time and what the requirements are. So right now is a really exciting time for baseball, but actually for all rotational sports, because for the first time in my 78 years on this planet, I'm actually seeing the weight room talking to the coaches talking to the weight room, and both talking to the analytics department. So it's not perfect, and there's still a lot of jealousy about hanging on to what you know and you don't want to share with anybody. But the game is getting better. And the net beneficiaries are guys your age, Weston, where you're going to get the benefit of all our screw ups. Guys like myself that have been through the wars with making mistakes. We're getting better now. So did that kind of answer your question? There is no perfect, but there is something that's best for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it could be really any one of those things, right? Where the most common would probably be the kind of myelination of, just getting comfortable moving at a different speed. And the only way you can do that is by doing it, right? And so it's like, if you want to throw harder, throw hard more often.
Exactly. When you come down next week, we're going to see if we can find out where your thresholds are, and we're going to get you to go right by them with what we're now calling the ambient nervous system. So bring your seatbelt with you.
I'm going to do it too, Tom. I'm going to do it for research too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Well, there's two ends to the spectrum. There's the middle, and then there's the outliers. You and I are on the outlier side. So did we cover everything we're supposed to cover tonight?
Yeah, we have a couple questions though. You want to get to Weston?
Because
Want to fire
I'm
with the
good.
questions? Yeah, a few more.
I
Minutes.
just I
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I got one more
Yeah.
quick one. Tom, you talk about the 2 ounce, and bring your seatbelt. I think one thing that's interesting is how, two guys that throw the same speed of a 5 ounce will throw the 2 ounce different speeds. Have you noticed a difference in the transferability between a guy who struggles to throw a 2 ounce and increases their 2 ounce speed versus a guy who throws a 2 ounce well and increases their 2 ounce speed,
Yeah,
and how that translates to a
you'll
5 ounce?
see all different things happen. You'll see kids that throw the 5 ounce better than they're supposed to, and they're really bad with a lighter ball. You'll see guys that are better with a heavier ball. You'll see guys with everything bunches around the 5 ounce ball. And we have protocols for each one of those things. And basically, what your body has done somewhere back when you started pitching, you found the sweet spot with effort where you could actually throw strikes and get people out. Well, sometimes that's not enough as you get higher and higher in the pyramid. And until you find out what your max is, and that's what we're finally starting to figure out with each individual, what your point in time capacity is and what your projectable capacity is. And do we have a drill that can actually train or motivate to help you get that top out of yourself?
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, let's
Good
get to these questions. Is there a way to test if you need more work to work more on arm strength or more on arm speed?
Yeah, we've got all those tests. Here's something you should be aware of. Most pre-adolescents have arm speed without arm strength, and that is a recipe for disaster. So that kid that has that happen, which is it's most of your better athletes on the youth level, they can throw 75 pitches a week or 100 pitches a week, but they can't do it in one outing. You have to spread it out. So those kids that have arm speed, but they're not functionally strong based on mustard testing and whatever, those are the ones you have to monitor their outings and their workloads per outing.
Is that what you think that leads to the most injuries now in the big leagues? A lot of big leaguers with a lot of arm speed but not a lot of arm strength?
Well,
What do you think it is?
again, you're hitting us mid-research. I think, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I hope I don't get blasted for it. I think there's more injuries caused in the weight room that show up on the field, and people are understanding. And the more I talk to conditioning strength coaches that are willing to listen, there's collaboration going on right now. I think when we come out of this next year, everybody's going to be smarter for the experience.
They're saying there might be a lot of pitchers throwing in when they're in deficit.
Yeah.
So
That the weight room stuff is awesome,
yeah.
but they never fully recover before they're asked to go Mach 3 on the mountain. And that is as much a problem as not being strong enough. So we're looking for that sweet spot. What I'm most encouraged about is organizations like us, like Mustard, there's finally communication going on between competing organizations with the idea that we've got to get better with the athletes we're dealing with.
Yeah. Perfect. I have another question. Can you work with doing speed bats on your velo day, like before you throw the speed ball? Kind of get rotation in there before you throw?
Explain what that means to you.
I'm going Mach 3 with the light bat, and before I throw.
Yeah, you can use, and you'll see we got some new protocols with the bat, Weston, and basically get on the mound with a bat or flat ground with a bat, and your bottom half is a pitcher, and your upper body is a hitter, and when you combine those two, not only you train for more strength, but your functional movements get better too. That it's hard for me to say, cross specificity training. There, I got it out without spelling it out.
There you go.
Your body's a bilateral experiment, and we're getting better at that kind of stuff too. So when you guys come down next week, well, I've had a fun month or two, and we'll share the wealth and maybe share it with Mustard before the summer's out.
Yeah, and we're gonna for everybody in here, we're gonna live stream maybe a couple days when we're out there.
Well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so we're gonna stream online live so people can watch, and see the procedures. When you go train with Tom.
We're basically on the field from 10 in the morning until we finish.
Yeah. And last question, and then we'll be done because dinner's ready. I heard Marie screaming.
You did. That's awesome.
The meatloaf is ready. So let's get to the last question from Rich. What are your recommendations for working on velo days with catchers? I'll say anybody, all the other field players.
Well, here's what's really cool. When a pitcher throws the 2 ounce, who has to catch it? And catchers get better trying to catch the 2 ounce. When they first start, their eyes and their brain don't work together. They're bouncing off their face, hitting their chest. But after about a week of trying to catch the 2 ounce, they can play. So catchers get better receiving when you throw the 2 ounce out. Pretty cool.
But can you do the same thing to improve the velo for catchers? You want to improve?
For any throw.
Yeah.
And along those lines, you should not swing a heavy bat in the on deck circle. You should swing a light bat in the on deck circle. And we have a new toy called the 2K trainer that I'll show you guys next week.
Oh, I'm jacked up for next week already.
Yeah, that's a hook. That's a tease. That's a tease to make sure everybody comes back next week.
I'm gonna start stretching out already today. I'm gonna start warming up already. Awesome. It's gonna take me like 3 days to warm up.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
All righty.
That was fun, guys.
That was fun. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Look out for the live sessions next week, and we're gonna have a roundtable with Weston, Justin, and Joey, hopefully, and Tom next Wednesday, and talk about.
We'll do it. Awesome. Y'all have a great night.
All right, perfect. Have a good night.